there was so much fear, I would say, that it didn't even really allow me to get to, well, what do I want my life to look like in the future? What do I want my family to look like in the future? What benefits even might there be? I think I was just totally, and this is funny because my toddler's just using this word now, stuck.
I'm Keltie McGuire, and you're listening to the Kids or Childfree podcast. Hello and welcome to the Kids or Childfree podcast. Today I'm speaking with Jordy Snyder, who is a former fence sitter who, like myself, spent about 10 years on the fence wrestling with this decision. And Jordy encountered a lot of different considerations and fears, as I know so many of you are grappling with right now or have grappled with in the past. And unlike me, Jordy ultimately decided to pursue motherhood. So how did she get there? How did she resolve all of these different worries that, as she puts it, really had her frozen in place and seemingly unable to decide? Today, you're going to find out. And I had just a wonderful conversation with Jordy, which I know you're going to love listening to. So let's get into things. Jordy, I'm so glad that you reached out and we connected a number of weeks ago, and that you're here today to have a conversation about your kids or child-free decision. So maybe just to start, I'll get you to share a little bit about yourself, whatever you'd like us to know.
Of course. And I'm so excited to be here today, Keltie, and excited to share my story as well. I'm Jordy. I live in the United States in Washington, D.C. with my husband and my 2-year-old daughter. I work in public health in maternal and child health, and I love nature and connecting with my friends, laughing and playing.
I love that. Okay. I'm a big fan of nature and play and connection and all those things as well. And I think that's actually going to resonate with a lot of people. So let me ask you this. I mean, probably I'm going to guess we've given this episode some catchy title that people will know a little bit what they're signed up for. But were you like super sure, I know I want to have kids, absolutely, let's do this? Or was your story perhaps a bit different than that?
I was in the, when they say fight, flight, or freeze, I think I was...
Fawn? Freeze?
I was in the freeze phase for a long time. So definitely not in the definite yes or definite no camp.
Yeah. Okay. And would you say that was always the case for you, or was it that the uncertainty came more as like this became a more relevant question for you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think when I was younger, I probably assumed, when I was like a kid and teen, I assumed I was going to be a parent, but I didn't really give much thought to, what that implied or anything like that. And so I think, as I got into, a serious relationship and got married and was getting older and, nearing the biological clock time. And as my friends started to have kids, my family and friends didn't like kind of pressure me too much, but I think I, started to realize like, this is something that's coming up and I need to make a decision.
Okay, so I was going to say, it's just funny because when we are in the throes of indecision, I know anybody's comments, inquiries, what have you, can feel really pressurous. And I understand why it's a tough topic to, I guess, engage in for other people, right? But like the fact is that many or most people still have children. And I guess what I try and encourage people is, as much as it can be painful if you're on the fence when somebody is asking prying questions or making comments, I don't think it generally comes from a bad place. It's just we're so much in this, like, that's just what you do. And so I'm curious, like, when you remember first, like, giving this real pause or being in that sort of freeze state. You talk about being in freeze. What was making you freeze?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I was in a period of freeze for probably, close to a decade, but the freeze was more concentrated as I got older. I could remember, a friend of mine was passing through town and she was pregnant. She's very straightforward, upfront, say it like it is kind of person. She visited me, and I think it was actually during COVID. So I was sitting at the door and she was sitting kind of outside the door. And she's like, well, are you guys going to have kids? And I remember feeling like this tapped into some insecurity within me that I was grappling with, internally so much. And it just set off this entire panic within me. That's one instance of that, where then it ended up being a whole conversation with my husband and, blowing it up even further, even though it was something I was obviously, weighing and thinking about.
Yeah.
And thinking about, okay, I know we're getting older. We've done a lot of travel. We've done a lot of fun things. I'm kind of going to need to own this decision at some point soon. But it was obviously like internal for me. I was obviously discussing it, with some friends and family, but anytime it would come up like that, I think, and when people were kind of forthright about it, that I really felt that freeze. We have a really good group of friends who we live in Washington, D.C. And during the beginning of COVID, most of them had already had 2 young kids. And so they were like around our age, but maybe a few years kind of advanced in age and kind of in life stage. And they all also started kind of moving to the suburbs. So it was actually also no longer kind of in my face, but at the same time, it was feeling like, well, they're already moving on to this, next stage. I think the pressure for me to make this decision is growing.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like, obviously there's both your biological age, but then there's also what the other people around you are doing, and seeing that, like, as you say, it's sort of everyone is, quote, moving on, which is a weird feeling and place to be in. And I guess, like, for you, did you feel like you were trying to sort out, okay, like, do I actually want this? Or is it just that I feel like I should? Like, I'd be curious to hear a little bit about what that sort of inner dialogue, or external dialogue for that matter, what that looked like. And maybe you can express, like, what lived on either side of the decision for you from one choice or another.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of should, shouldn't. I think there was a lot of like, okay, is this something? Obviously, it's not something that just happens. You need to work to make it happen. And if you're, for a variety of, you need to do a lot of things to make it happen. It's an active decision. I guess unless it's not, and it's by accident. But in my case, it needed to be an active decision. I struggled with my own, mental health. I've been a person with anxiety and depression. I come from a broken family. So at a very young age, my parents got divorced, and it was not an amicable divorce. We've had some family estrangement. So I think all of those pieces, and then also I was at a period of my life where I was really enjoying myself. Like, my husband and I were traveling, we're going out to dinner. We kind of, as this group of friends moved out, strengthened relationships with other people in our community, who many of whom are single and child-free or coupled, but also not really at the point where they were having children. So I think a big piece of it also linked to the mental health piece is a fear of failure, And I think that the fear of change and uncertainty and internal pressure for myself to make the right decision was immobilizing me. It wasn't even like, do I want this or don't I want this? Or, how will this change the next 10 years of my life? It was like, how will this change my life now? Am I physically capable of carrying a baby? Am I, emotionally and mentally stable enough? I'm a person who also, as I said, nature and friends and connections, like, I like time by myself, and I'm enjoying time by myself and with my friends and with my husband. So there was a real there was so much fear, I would say, that it didn't even really allow me to get to, well, what do I want my life to look like in the future? What do I want my family to look like in the future? What benefits even might there be? I think I was just totally, and this is funny because my toddler's just using this word now, stuck stuck. She says it stuck.
That's so cute.
I was stuck. And I really couldn't see even my way out of it. So it wasn't, I think I've listened to some of your podcasts, and for myself, I'm a person who just thinks about things so analytically and critically, obviously sometimes to a deficit, but I wasn't 100%. I didn't even know, like, for my own confidence interval, I just didn't feel like it was that wide with my own, ability to own a decision. And even to get to the point that I was able to think about that decision beyond just making the decision.
It's funny because everything you're sharing it's both like really personally resonant for me. I'm like, even though it's been several years now since I made my own choice, everything you describe is just so relatable, and also worth noting or observing. Like, I would love, and this would make my job so much easier. People might not even need me. It's like if there was a guide to, if you enjoy time to yourself, don't have a child. If you want this kind of experience, do have a child. And so a lot of what you're saying right now, it's interesting because there are things I hear from, I don't want to say virtually everyone, but like a lot of the people making this decision. Do I have the capacity for this? How am I going to fare mentally, emotionally, physically? Yes, great to ask the question of what do I want my life to look like? But like, I can't even go there. That feels even bigger than this kids or child-free decision.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how did you parse through that all? And of course, the answer to is this like an equation we can easily solve? I mean, we can hear someone like you and what you described decide to have a child, as in your case you did. We can hear someone similar, which ends up being maybe someone like me who decides not to have a child. So what got you to the I'm going to do this place, do you think? Like, maybe you can walk us a little bit through that journey. And I realize it was intensifying over a decade, similar timeline for me as well, by the way. But like, if you could give us like a brief breakdown, what happened?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And, I've been thinking about it in preparation for the podcast, and I'm not actually sure that I have, like a moment and I think that's why people struggle for so long. I just kept saying to myself, like, this isn't like, do I want a piece of chocolate cake? It's not, first of all, that's obviously a yes decision as a chocolate lover.
Very clear. Yeah.
And, it's a life, and it's not a simple binary, right? I'm sure there are going to be moments in my life where there are challenges where not change or regret my decision, but just think, okay, this is challenging. I remember a colleague saying to me, like, they decided that having children was the best and the hardest thing. And I was like, but how can that both be? And I was stuck in the hard piece. So I was just critically examining everything and perseverating over all of the things. I think over such a long period of time that I eventually acclimated myself, honestly, to like, okay, that this could be a reality. And a little bit of it felt like, this is the moment. Like, everything is status quo until it's not. And I was feeling like, I know my husband really wanted children. I really felt very safe and secure in that relationship. So I felt like, I wanted to lean on that. I was afraid that if I didn't make that decision, that our partnership might end. And so that felt like even more pressure to make the decision, which obviously compounded it and made it a little bit more challenging, but also made me feel like I needed to be the one to own it a little bit more. I've gone through some really hard things in my life. I'm not sure that this, consciously played into it or not. But as I said, my parents' divorce when I was young was really traumatic. And as the youngest sibling, I really lived it and had to experience it. It was like due to financial reasons. There were evictions and lock changes on the house. There were a lot of things that made my childhood really complicated. And I understand, I'm still a privileged, person to have some stability and whatnot. I've been through, bad breakups. I've been through bad. So maybe I started to internalize. I was working with a therapist. I'd been working with the same therapist for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I started to internalize that I could do hard things. And this narrative of failure really is something that, continues to just failure and change continues to just be something that is undercurrent for me, and is really challenging,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, as a person existing in this world and, with the pressure to just function and do all these things. But I did realize also this was one of the most stable periods in my life. I was, immobilizing myself with this, but I had a job that was stable, a partner that was really stable and supportive, and a good balance to me. I had an amazing group of friends, an amazing community. There's always something with family, but at this point in my life, I was feeling pretty good about, most things family related. And I think my therapist asked me at one point in time, like, and this is something you've certainly discussed in your podcast, but,
Mm-hmm.
not would you regret it in 10 years, 20 years, but if you look back in 50 years, like, what would you have wanted your life to be and your legacy to be? And I think I just started to think on that a little bit, that, okay, maybe the type of life that I'm living right now will be fulfilling for a long time. But I love, as I said, connecting with people. I love building relationships. I love making people laugh. I like kids. I just wasn't, really gunning for it for myself.
Yeah.
And so maybe, it was a result of all of those different factors of thinking about, well, I've dealt with mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning how to help myself in that regard, not just with therapy or medicine, but, going into nature, reading, taking time for myself, and, really working with my husband, to really talk things through. He was very, patient, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
talking with friends and starting to hear maybe that glimmers, but really not much, that other people were in the same camp. Because I think another thing that was immobilizing me was that I felt abnormal, in that
Yeah.
I was thinking about this decision so much, and in that I wasn't even getting to the place that I was saying to myself, is this something I really want, or am craving, or am meant for, or what will the meaning be? It took a lot of time, I think, and a lot of
Yeah.
weighing of different options.
This could be like, we could dissect it and have it sort of be a masterclass in how one might explore this decision, because you share a few what I view as truths about this choice, which is this notion of like the aha singular light bulb moment. Now, as I always say on this podcast, if that's someone's reality,
Yeah.
amazing. I'm not here to dismiss that, but I think it really does us a major
Yeah.
disservice when we expect or believe that it has to look a certain way.
Yeah.
It has to be this singular turning on, hell yes, I'm all in. Do
Right.
you agree with that? Like, do you think that really got in your way thinking about it this way?
No, I think I was more afraid of the yeah, I mean, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
No,
do.
disagree with me.
I think
But
I
you were going to
was
say it was,
so
yeah,
stuck that I couldn't even get there.
yeah,
But maybe I did feel like that was supposed to happen. I think more, instead of the aha moment, like the ingrained, like, from birth, my older sister
yeah,
always
okay,
play with her Barbies to be able to have babies. Like,
yeah,
she was getting them married so they could have babies. And I never felt like that. So maybe the aha moment, but like more
yeah,
ingrained in my being, I would say.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a big one for me too. And of course, hindsight's 2020, where you can look back and think, oh, that wasn't a
Right.
helpful perspective to have. But no, and so to sort of piggyback that idea of like, this wasn't ingrained in my being. I don't know if you use this word, but I had to think about like this idea of shame, and you
Mm.
feeling so shameful about this uncertainty you had, and how that, I think, to me, it almost is like it puts on additional blinders where it's hard to figure this out,
Yep.
because not only are we unclear what we want,
Yep.
but we feel bad about the fact we're unclear what we want.
Yeah.
Does that feel true? Again, I love that you were like, no, not so much.
No, that certainly feels true, you know, because I felt like everyone else in society had the tools to make this decision, had the confidence in their own decisions, and knew what they wanted, and maybe wasn't as scared of change or uncertainty. And maybe, you know, so a friend shared something with me the other day. I'm actually a listener of your podcast.
Oh, I love it.
Katie, so I should shout out to her. Hi,
Katie.
She shared this thing about, you know, maybe we knew too much. And, you know, I think as I was getting older, I was perseverating more, and also like thinking about the realities and the challenging realities of what bringing a child into this really challenging world would be like. And, you know, the day-to-day challenges of, you know, family and bills and childcare and all the different things. I think those were completely in my way.
All right, I have a very important invitation to make, and that is to join us for one of our upcoming Kids or Child-Free workshops. If you have not attended one of these 2-hour workshops and you are unsure whether you should have kids or stay child-free, this is the next thing on your to-do list to getting clear on the right choice for you. Head to kidsorchildfree.com. I will also link to our workshop page in the show notes and get all the details on this 2-hour live online workshop that's going to help you get more clarity and direction in terms of whether a future with kids or a future without them is the right path for you. Tickets are only $45, and we have these workshops every month or two, so you should be able to find a date and time that works for you. If you can't join the upcoming date, make sure you sign up for emails so that you can get notified when the next date is announced. Yeah, this idea of do we know too much? I think for making this decision in many ways, yes. Yeah. I mean, let's say this. I think a lot of us who struggle with the choice, we could say our amount of knowledge is not helping us. It's generally hindering us in this choice. And yet there's a whole bunch of other people who probably don't consider those various factors and like the weight and implication of having a child, perhaps when they should. It's classically the case, right?
Right.
You know, it's like we talk about nuance a lot in this podcast, but it's a tough one to handle because it's also good to know that there's potential outcomes and concerns and challenges that one should contend with, but we can't get totally bogged down by that because we will never make a decision.
Yeah. No, and I think it really was like a lot of it was time. A lot of it was, you know, thinking about how long can I do this to myself? I mean, I was torturing myself.
Yeah.
I think I was
tell me about that.
Maybe I was afraid that my answer was really no. And I did, again, with the shame piece, maybe didn't want to disappoint my partner, myself, commit to something that was life-changing in a different way. I'm really not sure, honestly, what got me out of it. Maybe it was honestly just enough time had passed that I just finally said, like, okay, things are stable. Yeah. I have the tools to be able to think about this. And then I knew that, you know, I was a little older and it might take some time. So there were gradual steps, you know, obviously that we needed to take to, you know, I needed to get off some medicine. I needed to make decisions about other things. We needed to have some genetic testing. So there was, like, I think multiple steps that felt like, okay, this isn't going to be an immediate thing. Obviously, you know, once you get pregnant, there's a time period as well. But I always would say, like, you take a year to plan a wedding, but only 9 months to plan a baby. So
good point.
It felt, you know, kind of imbalanced. But I think, you know, I just came around to, okay, maybe I can take kind of one step at a time, and we can take one step at a time in this stable part of our lives to, you know, explore this opportunity. And we kind of had a second honeymoon, if you will, to Thailand. And we took this amazing trip, and we kind of discussed beforehand, like, okay, we're going to start trying after Thailand. So it was kind of like a ramp up, maybe period. And even then, you know, after a little bit, we heard that we are a match for a pretty significant genetic condition.
Okay.
And the odds were pretty high that, any children that we had would be either carrier or would be, would get this disease. And that kind of made us pause, I would say, and say like, okay, are we sure? And I think every one of those steps also created a little more opportunity for me, not only to like acclimate to the idea, but also to go back into my narrative of like, well, maybe this is a reason not to do it, like kind of like taking that maybe shame away and giving me like permission to be like, well, maybe this isn't right. It's a sign. But the truth is, I think once we started taking these little steps and, I asked my husband, in reflecting for the podcast, several times, like, first of all, were you afraid that I wasn't gonna, kind of come around? And what would that have done? I'm rich. We had many conversations. And then at one point in time, he said, when I put the ovulation tracker app on my phone, he was like, I saw that as like, you were getting ready and you were like accepting that like, you could do this and we could do this. Maybe TMI for your listeners, but that I was...
No, there's no TMI here. Please continue. Tell us more.
That I was taking an action to say like, okay, I'm open and ready. And once we were like making those decisions, I still like really did have a pause, very often at kind of every step. But I think enough time had passed. That, and we had taken enough actions and things hadn't changed between us. And I was feeling really good in my life. And I felt like, okay, like we can continue to move forward. And I think once I started to make those things, they built on each other. And I actually, even despite that, some challenging things in my pregnancy, I had gestational diabetes. I had a growth that we were sure wouldn't like allow a certain type of labor or whatnot. I needed a lot of screening. We had this, genetic thing over our head where once we got pregnant, we actually didn't tell anyone until we got the results of this test, which actually didn't end up happening until about 16 weeks.
Wow.
So we actually didn't even end up telling anyone until about like 18 weeks. So we were sitting with it. Yeah. And I think maybe that was time for myself to again, acclimate to like, this is real.
Yeah.
It's scary. It's a huge responsibility, which I think was, doubling down on some of the things that I had been afraid about too. But we were in it and we were in it together. I'm so fortunate to have a partner who really has like supported me through this and through everything and through job loss and through death and through just so many different things. And so if not with this person, I don't know, but this person, my husband, Josh, he really just created a loving environment for me where he fully accepted me and fully loves me. I'm kind of getting teary because, sometimes it's just day-to-day functioning, right?
Yeah. So beautiful.
Yeah. And he made me feel safe, I think, in my indecisiveness, which I know was uncomfortable for him. And, so it felt like the whole time we were partners.
Yeah. That's so important. And I just want to like underline what you say there, because what I'm hearing through this whole conversation is there was constant communication between the two of you, despite the fact that his feelings were likely not the same as yours, and there wasn't that same confusion. And I mean, I always say there's no perfect sort of alignment between partners because two people who are confused, where do you go from there? One person who knows what they want, that, as you point out, can create a different kind of pressure. But the fact that there was and continues to be that stability in the relationship and that soft place to land and that, all the metaphors we want to use, you mention it not just even with regard to your partner, but life in general. Like, so I just want to say, you talk a lot about the uncertainty and the fears, and I get that as well, right? The life is scary and there's a lot we don't know, but I like that what you tried to, it seems like, reside in or come back to was actually, but look at all the things that are good.
Yeah.
Look at all the things I've navigated. Look at all the things that are stable. Look at all the things that are steady. And I would encourage anyone listening who feels like they're totally swept up in the chaos of this, of, yeah, what are those sort of like pillars in your life, if you will?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Can you speak to that perhaps, or would you agree?
Yeah, no, I strongly agree. And you summarized it really well. I mean, I think the other pillar for me was also friendship. I was in a period of like incredible friendship. I'm so lucky to have amazing friends who are so loyal and caring and will do anything. And yeah, I mean, I think in our day-to-day life, it's really hard to see that, you know, like to zoom out because we're stuck in whatever we're stuck in, whether it's, you know, illness or job stuff or boss or roommate or whatever. But I think I felt it. And I think that, you know, part of who I am is like, you know, as a result of mental health and just honestly, my composition, like I feel high highs and low lows. And I, you know, zooming out over like the period of a few years, like just realized like I'm incredibly happy. I really somehow I landed in this city that I love and I'm really enjoying. I'm doing like challenging things in my career. I found this partner who we balance each other. I call him logisticos. So he's really he's like the planner and the you know, logical rational person, and I'm like the fun and the spontaneity and the joy and the humor. And of course, that's not totally, you know, no one is fully those things. And I don't think that you could have a relationship if it was, but I really did feel those things. And so if not now, you know, like when, and I will say when I was getting engaged again to this person, to Josh, like, even though I felt incredibly stable and incredibly like confident that I could lean on him or rely on him, which is not something that everyone's looking for in a partner. But from very early on in our dating, that, you know, during kind of our first year dating trip, when he said, I asked him like kind of naively, like, oh, where do you think we'll be next year? Like, where do you think we'll be on a trip? Even though I was already thinking about marriage. And he said, I think we'll be engaged. And it led to this huge fight because I knew it inside, but I wasn't ready to like let my head and my heart connect. And so just basically, oh, and we joke about it because back to the chocolate, it led to a $16 piece of room service cake. So that was the most expensive decision. So I just realized about myself, and it's so hard for me every single time with every major decision to own it and to like just listen to my gut and move through it. And like, this is a person who from the very beginning, I felt that with, and I still was questioning myself like, oh, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I don't know if like that's locking in, it's committing to myself. And then the same with the kid. It's like, I was like, especially as a child of divorce, I was thinking, okay, well, if we have a child and something doesn't work out, now I had no grounds for thinking something wouldn't work out, but I guess that's where I go. Fear. Yeah. That like, I'm still tied to this person.
And that's important to recognize too. Let's like, I get that you're like, I appreciate you sort of tempering that with, well, there's no indication that like we should be recognizing that with this choice. Right. Yeah.
So the weightiness of the whole thing, just like, it really just, it got in my way. And at some point, you know, enough outside influences about not like you need to have a kid, you would be a good mother. I trust in you. I trust in you as a partner, you know, from all these like different little places. Like, I think I opened myself up to, okay, I can do this. I can try this.
Yeah.
And once I was pregnant, I was already doing it,
Yeah, and so I want to ask about that sort of moment or when that happened. There's a word you used quite a few times though that I really like, and this is this notion of acclimatization.
Yeah.
Is that acclimate? Okay,
Acclimatization. Yeah.
Acclimatization.
Yeah.
These words we read, but I too seldom use. I appreciate you've used it in a couple different ways in this conversation so far. One is it's like just getting used to the discomfort of this not knowing, of not being 100% of like, so I feel like your bandwidth or tolerance for this is hard and uncertain increased. Is that fair?
Oh, that's interesting. It either increased.
Maybe I'm wrong.
It increased or it capped out.
Or it capped out, right? But the point is like, it was more like, I know we don't like hanging out in that place, but I sort of am hearing from you like, okay, well, I'm there, I'm hanging out. It's uncomfortable. I don't know. And then also for you became used to this idea of motherhood, of what that could be like. And, we talk about and think about them being obviously like an on-off switch, which is a kind of weird way of putting it, but with having a child, right? We have a child, we don't have a child.
Yeah.
Or if we birth our own child, we're pregnant, we're not.
Right.
It's on the test, right?
Right.
And I would encourage people listening who are, exploring or considering however seriously the parenthood path, there are steps we can take that look like you say, doing the ovulation tracking, talking to the doctor, having certain conversations, thinking, how would we proceed if this, how about that?
Right.
And it doesn't actually have to mean, literally doing it, although that will probably, depending, come at some point. But it's like, I think that's, it's sort of, one of my clients calls it an emotional measuring stick. Like it's a way to like check in and be like, how do I feel? Like, and to your point as well, part of that stuff made you feel freaked out. So then it's about working through all of that discomfort.
Right.
But it's not just like it's black or it's white. We have to move through the sort of gradient. Right. At least that's what I'm hearing from your sort of expression of what happened.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, even as going back to you just getting married, I described it as, which marriage actually, I guess, is really like one moment in time you're married and one moment in time you're not. But that it was like not a point of inflection. It's a continuation of like our journey together so I think, coming to that, and also like you fast forward, but there's certain ways, of course, that your life changes immediately once you become pregnant or once you have a child or once you hear a diagnosis and I was afraid of that and of losing my life and my identity, which by the way, we haven't really talked about, and I will say my husband and I, first of all, were really committed to being able to continue to be who we are and bring a child into our lives as opposed to like, okay, we're designing. And we've been able to do that in a really impactful way. I think, other friends have shared with us that they really respect, how we're involving her in our community. And so it honestly isn't like, there are some things that change the day that baby is born or the day that, again, you conceive, but there are some things that don't. And a lot of things, those pillars, like you said, don't. Like we weren't moving. We weren't, everything else was stable. So that could change a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important to bear in mind. And also that this experience of like becoming a parent and getting to know your child, like it's everything, it's day by day, right? Yep. And I think when we do the future worst case scenario planning, it's like, oh my God, and what if I have a teenager and then X happens? Right. It's like, well, hold the show here because you don't even have a baby yet. So like I'm not saying that we shouldn't think about potential future occurrences at all, although one might argue perhaps we shouldn't. But yeah, it's about moving through each and every moment as it presents itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have like so many more questions for you, but like, okay, so you decide step by step, let's see, and back and forth sort of as you're going through each month. Tell me about finding out you're pregnant, and then like, was it like an on switch where you were like, yes, then it was a full body yes, or how did that happen?
Yeah.
I mean, I know how it happened, but tell me about that.
Well, the birds.
We can talk about it all. I'm very open.
So, I think we gave ourselves this timeline where we were going to start. And so, obviously every month we were kind of like checking, like, okay. And it wasn't happening for a few months. And I think we were starting to think like, okay, well, do we need to change anything? Do we need to see anyone different? Or just starting to discuss those things. And I think I still was kind of in the like, it's like, take our time and whatnot. But once we finally got pregnant, then we heard that genetic information, which kind of just like stalled us a little bit because it just made us think like, should we be doing this through fertility? Should we be pursuing other things?
Yeah.
And we made a decision to continue. And, and then I think it had been a few months and it was summer, which is always a good season for me. And we were on like a trip and I was not feeling well. And, I thought to myself before sharing it, with my husband, like, this is different than I feel, usually physically. And I had like noticed that, that I had missed a period. And so I was starting to say to myself, I might be pregnant. This is possible. And then I kind of shared it with him. And again, it was just like kind of gradual. Like it was like, we didn't, we were on a 2-week trip. We weren't near home. So, I didn't have doctor nearby. I could have gone. I didn't take a test. I was just like, let's just like continue as we are. And so again, like this acclimatization, which was a really long ramp, I guess. And once we got back, confirmed it, I like actually ended up like, kind of telling him in a really funny way, which meant, and I realized, when I did it, I was like, okay, like I kind of wanted to do it in secret for myself. Like it's so like I could sit with it myself a little bit more. And I told him in a really funny way. And I think by that point I was like, okay, we're doing this. Like, we're doing this. I'm doing this. I'm already doing it. And then, I started to, have checkups and things. And I was chatting with my mom about it last night. And she said, once you were in, you didn't like look back and say, should I, shouldn't I? Or no, but you really owned it. I had to go to the doctor a lot during that pregnancy. I sought resources for myself that like, I didn't really feel like maybe because of this indecision, I hadn't really had experiences with newborns. My nieces and nephews are older. I hadn't really been interested in like holding my friends, maybe playing with my friends' kids that were older. But so I felt like I started to listen to some podcasts, read some articles, some journals, take some like online classes at my own time and pace to be able to kind of like figure out what I needed to know and what decisions I needed to make to like really, I think it's through the pregnancy and the first few months. I don't think I thought really beyond that. So I really did. Each step was like, okay, maybe I can. And once I could, and I did. Yeah.
Very cool. Now you mentioned you didn't tell anyone else for a few months because you were waiting for the testing to come back. And that was positive. It was an all clear as far as no incidents of the genetic conflict.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the medical terminology.
Yeah. We found out on a complicated day in the world. It was a really hard day in the world. That our results were good for on this individual pregnancy. Where if we decide to do this again, we'll have to go through the same thing. Now, obviously, I think our friends and family like know about this genetic possibilities. So we were alone in it. I think and I think that was really heavy for my husband. I think it was heavy for me. Probably should have been heavier, honestly, but I think I'd gone through all the heaviness I could go through with regard to worry at this exact point
Yeah.
in time. But we had to really think about, and especially in this time politically and geographically, like we were going to have to we were at the point where before we got those results, we were going to need to make a really difficult decision very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish anyone who has anything like this so much strength and, we didn't really struggle with infertility, but anyone who's making this decision, there are so many factors, and it is so important to just take care of yourself, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and advocate for yourself. It's challenging. It's challenging to understand medical language,
Mm-hmm.
even as a person who works in public health,
Yeah.
and has resources. Like, it was challenging. But again, the two of us were doing it together.
Yeah. Well, you did what you could with the information you had. And I'm sure you've learned if you choose to have
Yeah.
another child, but it was okay. So 4 months and you started letting people know. I mean, I'm curious how it is having been a former fence sitter. Are people like, is it a gotcha moment where they're like, we knew you'd do it eventually? Or is it like, I'm always curious about that. How was it?
That is so funny. Yeah, I think some people were probably like that, but they were probably also like, finally, like,
Yeah.
but that is cool to have other people like kind of had this like vote of confidence in you that you could do it, and you'd be good at it. A high school friend said to me, who I'm not close with anymore, but we were passing through her town and visiting, and she said, it just is such a different perspective that I hadn't even been thinking about. I've been thinking about myself. I've been thinking about, and maybe this is where the shift comes in. She said that
Yeah.
baby is going to be so lucky to have you and Josh as parents. And I was like, wow, what an incredible thing and gift to offer me, that like, I not only am not going to be a failure, but I'm going to have so much value and love to give to this person. And like, other people believed in me so much that it makes me sad that I, doubted myself for so long. I think that got in my way. I think some people were surprised. I think they thought, oh, they're for sure not going to, especially friends, like, they talk, people talk. And one friend said, oh, I had no idea you were even thinking about it, because I'm also clearly the person who shares things, I want to connect with people. So I'm vulnerable and I'm honest and I'm down to earth. And I hadn't really shared.
Yeah.
So people were surprised, but happy.
I bet. And that's lovely what your friend said about, like, I think that's a really lovely thing to say to someone who's expecting, of like, what wonderful parents they'll have and like what a fortunate child. So
yeah,
you now have a two-year-old, almost 2-year-old daughter.
2 at the end of this month.
Wow. I'd love to hear how the rest of your pregnancy was, how motherhood's been. I mean, I'm sure there's like much more than we could ever possibly capture, but like, also, I want to hear about the experience, but also on reflection of all those fears that you had and anxieties.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy. It's hard. Don't get me wrong, but
do you get your colleague who said it's what did she say? It's joyful, but it's hard.
She said it's the best.
You get it now?
The best thing, but the hardest thing. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, each stage has its own challenges, but
yeah.
I do. I mean, like, I would say like just the amount of work, communication, communication, decisions, planning. Like, there's a lot of, when a friend said of ours, he's like, having a kid is a lot of projects, and I'm really good at projects. And like, I had this narrative about myself, like, I'm really bad at projects, and my husband's really good. So yeah,
I don't believe you.
Thank you. Thank you. So,
continue though.
I'm really happy. I love that little girl so much. It's a crazy thing. Yeah, it is the hardest and the best thing. It's I feel like she's an extension of my body. I'm so proud of myself for being able to, carry her and deliver her, and that was scary in and of itself. And I've been really successful with nursing, and I'm probably going to start weaning soon, but I'm just incredibly proud of myself and my physical capabilities and my mental abilities and my ability to connect with her, in the relationship that I still have with my partner, and the ability that I have to maintain my identity, my relationships with my friends. It's hard, but it's really important, and I really thank my partner for that too. And this little girl is bringing me so much joy, so much love, so much laughter. I am away for a few days, and I can't wait to hug her and kiss her, laugh with her. Like, I'm especially really enjoying just watching her develop. It's incredible to see what this little potato can turn into really quickly. And yeah. And it feels natural, which is everything I was dreading that it wouldn't,
You definitely radiate joy in your motherhood, and it makes me feel really happy that in spite of, or maybe because of all those ups and downs and the questioning, that you've arrived in a place that seemingly feels right and aligned and, as you say, natural for you. And that it's also been an exercise in like self-trust and your own capacities. Not having known you before, it sounds like there's like been a lot of growth through this for you.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I think, as I continue to go through hard things, because life is hard, I think I really should use this as like an anchoring.
Yeah.
And really at the core of my being, I think, is like, as I said, like connecting with people and being happy. Like, I don't know if I care so deeply about joy. And that is exactly what this little girl is bringing me. And it's incredible to watch her learn and grow and develop. And obviously she, is also helping me do that. And so I'm really appreciative of her. And I love her. And I think I'm doing a great job, which, my therapist would say, like, what do you think about that? And like, I think I'm letting it seep in slowly. Like, yeah, I'm killing it.
It's awesome. I love that you can say that. And you, again, use this term, like, I'm owning it. I'm owning the decision. I'm owning this path, this role. Why not?
Yeah.
Wow. What an incredible journey it's been.
Yeah, it really has.
You're just getting started too. I mean, you've been through a lot, but it's, of course, your daughter, your motherhood experience is still relatively new.
Yeah.
And so I look forward to hearing and seeing what comes next for you.
Yeah, no, and I'm just really grateful for this opportunity to share. I think when I was going through this, I didn't feel like there were a lot of resources, or people just talking about it. And I just found your podcast by chance, but I really wanted to come on because I felt like my story is really salient, and I really want to be able to help other people. So I appreciate that you're out there in the world doing that, to help people move through this like really difficult decision.
Yeah. I am immensely grateful to be doing it. And I could speak with people like yourself all day, every day. I just, I think we need these stories so much. They're so important to both hear from people who are in the thick of it, who've certainly made their way through it, because it still is not, I think it is the norm in the sense that, like, I think a lot of people have ambivalence and grapple with this decision way more than we could possibly know, but it is not at all normal, quote unquote, or the norm that we hear about it. So,
and it's starting to become the norm to hear about other things like challenges, challenges of fertility and different, and single parents by choice and different things. But no, I think this piece is really hard. And I will say, I don't know, what your audience composition is, that it's like only people in making this decision, or your clients are. But I think that some of these discussions are relevant to other really big life decisions too. And decisions are hard. That's it.
They are. Yeah, no, so much of what we talk about on the podcast and the work I do with my clients, it has a lot to do with a whole bunch of other big life decisions and that big life picture, which I'd love to kind of bring this full circle. At the beginning of our conversation, you said you were so stuck, to use your 2-year-old daughter's favorite word, that you really couldn't think more about that bigger picture of, what do I want for my life? What's ultimately sort of important to me, if you will. I'm paraphrasing, of course. Were those questions that you ultimately felt like you had to answer in order to make a decision, or are they things that you didn't need to be taken into account for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think, what's the Buddhist idea is like, everything is changeable. And no, I probably should have been thinking about those things a little bit more, zooming back, rather than focusing on the micro nuance, existentialism of who am I and what will I be and how will this change my life this day to day? I think it probably is helpful to have a little bit broader of a perspective about okay, there's a lot of things that can happen in my life, and these are general maybe streams, as opposed to okay, this road is going left or right, or what is the exact. And I found that in jobs too. People say where do you want to go? And I always have challenged feeling okay, everyone knows exactly where their destination is and what their route to get there is, and I don't. And the truth is, I think most people take a windy path if they had a general idea of where they were going, or they get where they're going and then they create their backstory that makes them seem like they're confident and decisive and that they created this. So I think some things are outside of our control too.
Yeah, no, that's a very astute sort of commentary that you just made. I think that's totally true, that a lot of it, and we want to make sense of our stories and our experiences and sort of find that red thread that ties things together. But I agree with you. I think, and I also appreciate the parallel in another area outside of this decision. Mm-hmm. We see that very similarly, and people say, oh, but career's not the same as having a kid or not. No, and yet there are things that we can learn from how we would regard that. And similarly, broad strokes or streams, if you will, as you put it, general sense of direction, the broad life experiences we'd like to have. We're kidding ourselves if we think we know the particulars, because even if we're hyper specific and clear on that,
things change.
We're going to be wrong, probably. Things change, right?
Those things at you. Yeah. And I think that maybe there's just in society, in this world, a kind of a framework that's how it is, and it's just really challenging to fit into. And maybe that's the thing that was so hard on me is I felt like I should fit into that. And I didn't get there in the same way.
Yeah. I'm curious, before we wrap up, do you have any advice that you would give to someone on the fence, or maybe even your former self? If there's something that you think could have been helpful for you, I'd love for you to share that.
Yeah. I mean, listen to yourself, trust your gut, talk to a therapist, get variety of opinions, but also just really think about what yourself and what you're capable of and what your needs are. And I think, as we were just kind of talking about, maybe stepping back from yourself and kind of looking at the bigger picture of, what it will mean to other people, or, but go in somewhat informed is what I would say, but don't Yeah, that's what I would say. And I would say, seek out resources to explore. But you are capable of a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, thank you so much. I should ask before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to share that we haven't touched on today that feels important?
No, I just, I'm really happy. And as a mom, it's bringing me so much joy. It's fun. It's not just hard and logistics and unknowns and challenging things, but it's really, really fun. And I'm happy. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. I'm very happy for you, and even happier that you decided to come share your story with us. So thank you so much, Jordy. I appreciate you coming on.
Okay. Thanks.
don't go just yet. I have one more thing I want to share with you today, and that is an ask. If you are enjoying the podcast and you have not already left us a rating and a review on your favorite podcast app, you can give us a star rating on the Spotify app. If you listen in the Apple Podcast app, you can leave a rating as well as a review, i.e. share a few kind words about this podcast and how it's impacted you. This goes a really long way in helping our podcast get discovered by other listeners, prospective, or I should say fence sitters who need some help with their decision. It'll just take you a quick moment and it truly does go a long way. So again, rating, review, make sure as well that you're subscribed to the podcast so you always get future episode updates. And otherwise, I wish you a beautiful rest of your day.